Oh, everybody got quiet there for a second. That must mean it's my turn, hey? Good. Well, once again, thanks so much, everybody, for coming on this Saturday morning. I appreciate that 9:30 in the morning for some is a little bit early on a Saturday, so welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Scott Quinney. I'm the Regional Manager of Operations for Verve Senior Living. And as I'll explain in just a moment, Verve is the operator of the Village Langley. Okay? So our goal today for everybody is to just give you a little bit of information on the Village Langley. That's why we're all here, right? Good, good. So we'll give you a little bit of an overview of the actual physical site at the Village Langley, okay? We're going to walk you through the vision behind the village. And we're also going to try our best to let you know about what it's like to be a team member at the village and what we're envisioning around that, okay? So our hope today is that when you leave this room, that you have enough information to decide if you think you would be a great team member for the Village Langley, okay? Sounds good to everybody? Fantastic. So my first job is to just give you a little bit of an agenda for today, okay? I'm going to do some introductions. You see some people behind us here who I will introduce. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are, the team behind the village, okay, and the partnership that exists there. It's my pleasure to tell you a little bit about the community plan. That's the actual physical community at the village, okay? We're going to go through our vision and our purpose so everybody has a good understanding of what that looks like. We're going to introduce Adrian, our executive director, who I'll introduce in a moment, is going to give you an idea of what it's like to be a team member, as I mentioned before, okay, at the village. And then we're going to invite Karen up, and she's going to talk about cracking the dementia code. And then we're going to make sure there's lots of time for any questions anybody has afterwards, okay? I'm sure lots of people have questions, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them through the course of the morning. So the first person, and I'm going to ask as I introduce people just to maybe just stand and wave or say hello in some way. The first and most important person at the moment at the village is our executive director, Adrian Alfred Burt. Adrian, if you want to give a wave. Hi, that's Adrian. Thank you, Adrian. That's me, Scott, I'm the next one. Karen Tyrell is our dementia consultant from Personalized Dementia Solutions. Karen, give a wave. Thank you, Karen. One of the visionaries and an all-around great guy, but the person who put the vision behind the village is Elroy Jesperson, our VP of Special Projects. Unfortunately, Scott Thorburn is the development manager for Cambridge. He couldn't be here today, but we do have Guy Thorburn, who's a community engagement manager for Cambridge Development. Guy is up here in the corner. And I'd also just like to take a moment, even though he's not on my slide, Bruce Schell is our food and beverage director for British Columbia. Okay. Fantastic. So as I mentioned before, I wanted to give you a little bit of information about the partnership behind the village. So I mentioned Guy, everybody waved to Guy earlier. Guy works with Cambridge, and Cambridge are the developers of the village. So they're the folks that find the financing, were involved in the design and the development, okay? And then I mentioned earlier that I work for Verve Senior Living. Verve will be the operator of the village, the manager of the village, okay? So we also looked and helped out with the design. We'll be responsible for training all the fantastic team members, which we hope will be many of you. We also are involved in operating the village, as I mentioned, and the management piece, okay? With that partnership, leads well into this slide. We're all here for the same reason. All of our expertise coming together for one cause. And you'll see Elroy, Karen, and Bruce there. That's not me. Bruce and I do have the same haircut, but that's not me up there, okay? Good. So what makes the difference at the village? What's the difference from any other retirement home in British Columbia? What we will start with is person-directed care, philosophy, and culture. I'm sure that a lot of you work at different retirement communities that say they have person-directed care, resident-directed care, right? So I'm getting a lot of nods here. So what Elroy will do in just a moment is he'll be able to give you the vision and how the village really tends to carry out person-directed care, okay? And through our philosophy and culture, we hope to be the best at what we do in British Columbia for that. All right? We have enriched living environments which stimulate, activate, and enable not only our residents, but most importantly for this group, our team members. Right? Great. We have skilled and confident, self-led teams that will help bring all of this vision to life. And that's going to be many of you folks in this room. Hopefully, right? Good. Through much of the presentation today, myself, Elroy, and Adrian, you're going to hear a lot of difference in language. And we prefer to use certain language that you might use in your workplaces now. We use conscious and intentional language to create home and community for all that live and work and support the Village Langley. So, 2 examples at a high level of language changes. We don't say a bed, we say a home. We don't say a facility, we say a community. Okay? So, leads well into our next slide, the village community. Let me tell you a little bit about the physical space of the village, okay? So we have a home for about 78 residents with a diagnosis of dementia. We have space of those 78, about 50 residents will have assisted living level support needs. So many of you likely work at assisted living residences now. I know a couple of you do over here that we already spoke earlier. 25 of our residents will have complex care needs, right? Some of the old language that we used to use was long-term care and that sort of high care and that sort of thing, okay? We'll have 3 respite rooms, and importantly for the people in this room, there will be about 72 staff members. So let's take a look at the actual layout of the village. So here is a village map that you all see. This is about 5 acres of usable space. There's about 7 acres in total, and we do have quite a bit of riparian space, or let's call it rough parkland, for example. So that's about 2 acres. It's a very beautiful spot. How many people have actually been to this spot and seen it? Yeah, great, thank you. Good, good. I encourage you to go and take a look, and the address will come up in just a moment. It's a fantastic looking spot, and you can peer through the fence and have a look. Okay? Great. So just to walk you through this a little bit, from 198th Street, as you can see there, and I'm on the far, your left-hand side of the slide here, we have the Oakwood Community Center. Okay, so this is a fully operating community center where we'll welcome people from the community. It's not just for our team, not just for our residents, okay? And then going up to the top of the slide, we have the Cedar Cottage, the Cypress Cottage. These are each household, they're actually duplexes with a staff area in the middle where you see where they're connected. Okay, I won't go through the rest here, but you can see some of my favorite parts. At the back of the slide here, the far right-hand side of the slide, you'll see that we have a little bit of a farm area. We have a barn, and I've actually seen it. It is a beautiful red barn, and we hope to have some animals and that sort of thing there for our residents. Yeah, I'm excited about that part. Great. So this is a snapshot of some drone footage that we have. So it just gives you sort of a real-life picture of what we're seeing at the village. And this is probably from about 6 weeks ago, Guy? Something like that, maybe?
Yeah, October, late October.
Oh, even longer. So late October. Okay, great. And so you can see here, I mentioned at the top of the slide, the Oakwood Community Center, and then around to the right, the Cedar, Cypress, and we can't quite see the barn area, which is too bad, but it is quite beautiful. Next, we have a picture of an artist's rendition of what the kind of main road through the village will look like. Where this view is, as you can see from the little bottom piece on the far left corner there. So this is from the back household looking towards the Oakwood Community Center, okay? So we're looking up the main road towards the Oakwood Community Center. Very beautiful. We've got a pond, a water feature on the left there, and lots of seating and signage, wayfinding signage throughout the main square of the village, okay? A quick look here. This is what a typical household will look like. So this is the front entrance as you come in. And as you can see, a totally different and unique idea. These are truly households, okay? It's not a large condo type building that you're walking into. It's a true village, okay? Great. So this is what one of the households will look like. And everybody can see that okay? And so again, you can tell from this slide, we've got the kitchen in the middle, the dining room, some activity spaces, and some living area, sort of similar to like you would have in your home. This household just happens to have 12 bedrooms around it. Maybe not like all of our households, right? But it is meant to be just like a home, just like you or I would live in. And again, just a few more bedrooms. Okay, great. This is the community center, the Oakwood Community Center. Again, we see this right at the front entrance. This is where all of our residents, family, and staff will come in and out of the village. So you can see here, we've got a workshop in the top left-hand side for our residents. We have a general store. We've got a little area for a bank/post office. So our vision that Elroy will go through later is we envision our residents coming with one of our staff members and going to the grocery store to pick up items for dinner and going to the bank or the post office as they would in their regular lives. Okay? And then as we go further on, we do have a cafe, bistro. I'll be spending a lot of time there. I enjoy coffee. We've got lots of recreation space, event space, and that sort of thing. And we have a full salon, full service salon for our residents. And then again, some office space for all of our team members, okay? That wouldn't be working directly in the households. So next, that's it for me for the time being. I'll see you again in just a few minutes when I come up and open the floor for questions. I'd like to invite Elroy Jesperson up. There you are, sir.
Which one's this? Good morning. Can you hear me? I want to go back a couple of slides. You saw one with my picture, Karen and Bruce, and we said we're all in this for the same reason. When we started thinking about the village and what it could and should be, we felt it was vital for everybody who's involved, whether that be the architect, the people who are developing it, the builders, the workers, everybody had to understand what we were trying to achieve. And so I took upon myself, because I'd been sort of thinking about this for a few years, to write what I called the Village Manifesto. And it was my brain dump on everything village. And so I wanted to talk about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, but mainly why we're going to do it, because I think that's really important. So I came up with this vision of when we were done doing it, what we might see. And I envisioned that we would have a unique, enriched living community where people with changed cognitive and/or physical abilities can live at home, surrounded by people who care and support them and their remaining abilities in a manner that enables them to live a life of purpose, be of service, connect to people and things that matter to them in a way and time that matter to them. So there's a lot of stuff in that, but basically it's all about the living, it's all about being at home, it's all about being in a community where you can make a difference. So I thought there are a number of elements that have to come together to bring this vision to reality. And so I call that the 4 Ps. I like things like alliteration and stuff. So first of all, we all have to understand our purpose. Then we have to understand the place that we're creating. We have to get the right people, and then we have to put the right practices into place. So Scott talked to you a bit about the place that we're building, and I'm going to talk to you about our purpose and then the people who I think are the right people. So our purpose is to enhance and optimize the well-being of each person who lives, works, connects with, and contributes to the village. So well-being is a word that everybody uses, but sometimes it's difficult to define what it means. Somebody's defined it as a contented state of being. So when I started thinking about well-being, I came across, and some of you may have read this book or heard this man talk, there's a fellow called Dr. Alan Power who wrote a book called Dementia Beyond Disease, and he talked about our role is to enhance well-being for people who live where we work. So he came up, and I sort of adapted it with a bit of a, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Optimizing well-being is, there are certain dimensions that we need to focus on, and basically we need to get to know each person. We need to work with them to develop relationships and connections that matter to them. We need to make sure that each person is feeling safe and secure and has control of their day-to-day living to the largest extent possible, that they have opportunity to learn new things, but also have a reason to get out of bed in the morning and a purpose and a meaning for their life and their day. So I came up with something that I think might explain this a bit better, and I called it the well-being triangle. And so on the left, my left, your left, I guess, there are basically 2 types of needs that we all have. We all have physical needs, and we all have psychological or internal needs. And on the right are sort of the dimensions of wellness that people talk about, and they talk about physical wellness or well-being, social, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual well-being. And so I thought by taking this well-being, optimizing well-being and putting it in a triangle, we needed to start with the base. And the base is physical well-being. And by that, I don't mean being healthy and able to do everything you've always been able to or want to do. I mean being able to be fed and not hungry, be able to be hydrated and not thirsty, be able to be pain-free and move about your day, to be able to be not too cold or not too hot, and to be able to feel safe. And basically, I think if any of you are working directly as care partners with somebody, that's what you do, or that's what you should do. And so that's where we start, because there's a saying that my mother used to tell me that I think is metaphorically appropriate. She used to say, well, you know, nothing seems right when your underwear's tight. Right? So metaphorically, the first thing we have to do is to make sure everybody's underwear fits. right? It's not tight, they're good to go. But then the question is, then what? Push them to the lounge and leave them? No. Then we focus on the other domains of well-being. And so identity, and they're, even though all of these domains are interactive and happen at the same time, they're kind of built to build one on top of each other. Identity is vital because unless you know who that person is, was, and wants to be, how can you help them? So taking time to really deeply know each person, not as a person you see in front of you today, but as a person they really are, is key. If you do that, then you will know the connections that they desire. And connection is all about the relationship. You will develop relationships that really are important to them, whether it be between people or between them and their God or nature, or that's where the connection comes in. When that relationship is strong, there's trust, and they will feel secure and safe and be able to look forward and say, this is what I want to do to live my life. Once they can do that, they'll start looking and seeing, where are my growth opportunities? What can I still do? What can I do that I used to do but now can't and can learn again? And what are those things I've always wanted to do but never had a choice and a chance? So they can grow as a person. And if they do that, they will get meaning and purpose in their life. And it's important for us to give them both a role and a responsibility so they can contribute to the village and their community. And if that happens, I would expect to see a lot of joy. And so when we define success, how are we going to be successful? Success at the village is measured by the amount of joy, love, laughter experienced by the people we serve, people who live there, people who work there, people who volunteer, and the local community. So if we could do that, and I come visit, and I see a lot of laughing happening, then I can say, you guys are on the right track and you're doing the right thing. If I don't, work to be done. So this is all nice to say and nice to do, but I also know that the only way it'll happen is if we get and hire the right people and get them to do the right things in the right way and at the right time. So I want to take a few minutes and talk to a little about what do I think the right people are and what their characteristics are and what they might bring to the village. So first of all, I think the right people are what I call are called to serve and have a need to be of service in whatever job they do. Doesn't matter where they do it, but they have this need to serve. They need to be inspired by our noble purpose, that to enable the well-being of everybody they serve. They need to think it's a lot more about that, keeping the underwear right, and they need to focus on those other things that are important. They need to learn, embrace, and champion the vision that we're all working together on. The people are naturally empathetic and put themselves in the shoes of others. They're authentic and they're true to who they are, even when that means they're going to be looked at as different than others. They're humble and know that no one is an island and that we each play a very small part in a much larger picture. They're honest and own their results and their mistakes and tell the truth, even when that might negatively reflect on them. They're flexible and can change and adapt because they know and understand that a dementia journey, change is constant. They're collaborative and know that a we decision is often better than a me decision. They embrace risk-taking, knowing that maintaining the status quo will often not facilitate an enriched living experience. They're lifelong learners who need to keep up front in everything related to the world of dementia. They're creative and not only think outside the box, but often ask why we should have a box at all. Our team players, and it's we before me, are optimistic and look for positives in all situations, are relational and understand that an enriched life is often about people needing people. They work hard and approach each day with an attitude that if it's going to be, it's up to me. And are committed to excellence in knowing that we can always do whatever we do better. Now, I'd be fooling myself if I think that person will stand up and say, here I am. But what we're looking for is people who have many of those characteristics, who have that mindset, that attitude, because they're the right people. And if we get the right people, then we can get them to do the right things. And the right things are, first of all, taking direction and cues from the villagers, the people who live there, the people we're there to serve. Taking the time and interest to know each person, who each person is, was, and wants to become on a really deep personal level. Learning and honoring the rhythm of each person's day, and then doing what needs to be done to facilitate a good day every day for everyone. Stepping back and allowing each villager to try or take the lead, while still understanding that it might be necessary for them for you and them to step up and also take the lead. Taking the time to connect with each person in a manner that works best for them, in a way that strengthens the relationship. Listening hard to better understand each person's feeling when the words and actions that they're exhibiting may not be saying the same thing. Taking guidance from our shared service principles rather than relying blindly on policies and procedures. Leading by example and modeling the way you expect from others, and being vulnerable and showing your true emotions. And the right time is simple. We're always person-driven when it best suits the needs and interests of each villager and as requested and directed by a villager. So to be successful at the village, you know who you need to be or are. You know what to do, when, and the right time. So being a team villager is all about fostering the relationship, enabling people to control and manage their day, even though it may not be what you would do, enabling them to feel safe, secure, and connected, establishing trust with families, enabling the people to learn new things, as well as helping them have meaningful roles and making contributions to the village that they are now calling home. So I'm going to let Adrian come up and talk about what are those practices, which is the framework, the positions, how we're going to put this all together with the right people that we're going to hire so they can do the right thing and still have the village be successful. Thank you.
Hello. Do I just press the round button in the middle?
Either side.
Either side, okay. And see, I'm a people person, not a technology person. That's why I'm not in charge of that. Thank you, Guy. All right, so thank you for coming today. I think I've spoken with many, if not most of you, on email at the very least. Probably. Who have I spoken with? Okay, so several. Okay, so we probably get at the village on our general email account at least 10 resumes or applications a day, or people wanting to apply for positions with the village every day. So we know there's a huge interest in joining our team. And so my goal for this morning was to explain to you about what would that look like if you were a member of a team. You know, what would you be doing and where would you be doing it and how would you be doing it and with whom? Because I think those are the big questions that people have. Okay, so this is who we are. This is our organization structure. And I purposely created it this way. So you'll notice it's different, right? It's flowing sideways. And I would consider us as a flat organizational structure. As an administrator, as a leader, I don't believe in hierarchical leadership structures. I think they're somewhat archaic and they're not particularly useful. From a workflow perspective. So that's why our org chart looks like this. And in terms of a functional team, we've designed the team so that we are an accountability-based team. So everybody has a form and function within the village. Nobody is good at everything, unless you're my 16-year-old son. Apparently you're perfect at everything and know everything there is to know. But nobody is good at everything. So this is why we have lots of different talents and interests represented within our staff team. One of the things that I'm really, really grateful for with the village model is our ratio of residents to team members. So if you remember back at the beginning, Scott had mentioned we are creating a home and a community for up to 78 residents with a ratio of 72 staff members, permanent staff members. That's huge. That's huge. So that I'm really, really excited for that, because the care and the relationships that can be formulated on that model are life-changing. They really are life-changing for people. So this is our team as a whole. So at the front of our community, we have our villager or our resident. And the reason why I put the villager there is that we are, again, not just resident-centered, we are resident-directed in our care model. And those are two very, very different things. We want the residents to be controlling the flow of their day. And then these are our team structures. So we have at the top box here speaks to generally our health and wellness team and our household teams. I'm going to go into each specific position further on, but our health and wellness community in our households, we have a few different roles. We have enriched living facilitators. The enriched living facilitator provides daily tasks to support the resident, daily care to support the resident. And again, we're focusing on the relationship you have with the resident, not just the task. Okay, we have health and wellness nurses, which I will explain. We have a housekeeping team. Obviously, we live in homes. They get dirty. They need to be cleaned. And we have a transition coordinator. The health and wellness nurse, the housekeeper, and the transition coordinator, they report to a health and wellness manager. This is a registered nurse, and this is a position that's currently posted. You may have seen it posted on Indeed or on our Verve Senior Living webpage. Enriched living facilitators report to our household leaders. We have a chef, actually two chefs I believe we are going to have, who will be based in our Oakwood Community Center. They report to our dining services manager. We have our community center team. We have a community center and program coordinator and community center and program assistant. They're reporting to our community center manager. Which makes sense now that you've seen the physical layout of the village community. We have a village concierge who is based at the front of our community center to welcome people upon entry, making sure that people coming in know where to go, they can find their way around, we receive visitors, what have you. We have a village bookkeeper. Not my thing, but something for somebody, something that somebody is going to be good at. They will report to an office manager. And then we have an environmental services manager. This person is responsible for the well-being of the community in terms of, equipment, operational flow of things. And then the management team, we all report. Well, they're reporting to me. We all operate as a consistent team. This team is further supported by a consulting registered dietitian, by a consulting pharmacist, and then also through the Langley Division of Family Practice, we'll be engaging with them as well for medical care. Does this make sense? Yeah, okay. So all of these positions are intended as full-time or part-time positions and permanent. So we may have some sort of floater, type of things for coverage, because coverage does come up in these types of settings, but we are intending to hire permanent positions, full-time or part-time roles, so that people have consistency in their day. Residents have consistency in their day, and so do you. Okay? So our teams, the specific teams, our health and wellness team, as I mentioned, is led by a health and wellness manager. So this position, again, is currently posted. Currently, I'm a party of one, so I'm really hopeful that we can get this position staffed very, very, very soon. This person is a registered nurse and eligible for registration with the BCCNP. Okay. We have health and wellness nurses. Our health and wellness nurses are also eligible for registration with the BCCNP, either as registered nurses or as licensed practical nurses. We have a transition coordinator. Transition coordinator is somebody who, in a traditional care setting, you would probably associate with admissions or a social work type of a position. So this role is expected to be somebody with social work credentials or an experienced case manager who is very familiar with the Community Care and Assisted Living Act, and then smooth transitions for people into new communities. And then our housekeeper also reports within this team, and this person would have a high school diploma or equivalent. This team, the health and wellness team, is physically based in our Oakwood Community Center, with the expectation that they will be present in the community, in the households, according to what needs to be done, and what our residents are going to be needing. Okay. All right. Other people, the household teams. This is a really cool team. The household teams are really, really dynamic teams, and this is where I think you're going to find a big, big difference with us. So the two household roles that I really wanted to speak to you about are the household leader and the enriched living facilitator. So the household leader is a position, I can't really describe it like any other role, because I don't think that it actually exists anywhere. It's a supervisory type of a position. I can put it within that context, but it's a very creative role. It requires a lot of diversity in skill, diversity in abilities and interests, and a lot of professional flexibility. So as you can see, for what we've created for the qualifications of this role, it does a little bit of everything. So it could be, you could be a nurse, you could be somebody who has a degree or background in therapeutic recreation, or you could be an allied health professional. This would be a really interesting role, I think, per household if we had a mix of these qualifications. If we had some nurses, maybe some OT, some PT, some therapeutic rec. The intention is that household leaders will be dedicated to specific households, and that we will have 12 in total. So 2 per 6 households, and then you would share the organization of that household amongst you. And this role really does do a little bit of everything. Supervisory relationship with the enriched living facilitators, but you run the household. That includes scheduling, includes budgeting, it will include meal preparation and meal planning. You're going to be cooking, you're going to be engaging residents and planning resident enriched living activities and events. It really is a broad role. There's a lot of openness for to grow it based on the interests and the abilities of the residents within that household. So a really creative, interesting role. The enriched living facilitator is also dedicated to households. This is somebody who is eligible for registration with the British Columbia Care Aide Registry. And it's in building on really Elroy's metaphor. It's the role to make sure everybody has their underpants on first, and that they're on right, right? That's so that they're on and they're comfortable. So this is somebody we really want focusing on developing the relationship with the person in the provision of care, as opposed to what do I need to do for Mrs. Jones today? When you're performing care for Mrs. Jones and you've got to look at your point of care machine and you've got to punch in your tasks as they're done. We want you focusing on Mrs. Jones first in terms of what are Mrs. Jones' preferences. I know what her care routine usually is, but what is her care routine today? Because maybe today is a different day for her than it was yesterday. Okay? The community center team, this is a very interesting team as well. Again, the community center manager is somebody who is based out of the Oakwood Community Center. This is somebody with a therapeutic recreation or allied therapy background. And this person is responsible for the team with the community center and program coordinator and assistant. The coordinator and assistant are similar roles. One is full-time, one will more likely be part-time, and the degree to which they provide event and activity supports may vary. The expectation is that not all of the events and activities and what we would typically define as recreation, take place in the community center. We will see organized events and activities in the community center that this team will be responsible for. But part of what we want this team to do is to enable the household teams to develop life enrichment activities of their own. And for some household teams, that may be to help people develop those competencies and those confidences. Because again, in a traditional care setting, the roles get very siloed, and what we're trying to do is break down those silos and recognize everybody's contribution. So we will see a lot of fluidity within this team. The community center team is also a team that is responsible for the barn operations, so with the farm animals. We're going to see lots of engagement there as well. The community center manager is a position which is also currently posted that you may have seen on Indeed or the Verve Senior Living webpage. Okay, our business team, we all need a business team. So our business team is comprised of our office manager. So this is somebody with business leadership experience. We will have a bookkeeper. Typically that's experience with bookkeeping, payroll systems, that type of a thing, as well as a concierge. So those positions will also be soon posted. Our concierge is a role that concierge services would be provided from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. daily. Okay. Our support services team, very, very, very important. So what are the two things that people often are upset about when they are in care? Food, yeah, food and activity, right? They're bored and they want to eat better. So food, our village support services team is critically important, and this is why we have the lovely and talented Bruce, who is giving us some great vision on how to inspire our dining services team. So food at the village is different in terms of how we do it. So in the Oakwood Community Center, we have a beautiful, fabulous commercial kitchen. It will knock your socks off. Really, really cool modern equipment. The majority of our meals initially will be prepared, cut up, washed, organized, with some pre-cooking done in the community center in that commercial kitchen. The vision is that then that food will be safely transported to the households where household leaders and enriched living facilitators will then finish that food off. Maybe you're preparing the salad, you're putting all the ingredients into the salad with a resident and helping to engage them in that food process. Maybe you're mixing the pasta with the sauce with the resident and then putting the cheese and baking it in the oven so they can smell the Parmesan baking. It helps increase appetite, and again, it's an activity of purpose and meaning for the resident. So our dining services team doesn't just prepare food, they're there to prepare food, but also again enable those competencies and those confidences within the household teams, and also as an engagement activity with the residents. So this is a really special team. I'm very curious to see how this plays out. So we will have a dining services manager as well as some chefs in our kitchen. And last but certainly not least, our environmental services manager. This is a really critically important role in any type of a congregate living setting, making sure that the grounds and the buildings and all of our systems are functioning properly, safely, and at an optimal level 24/7. Okay? Are there any questions about any of those initial questions? Yeah.
Do you know when the Care Aide positions and stuff will be posted?
I do. Yes, I'm going to get to that. I know the person who's going to post them. It's still the party of one. Okay. Another village difference. So I'm going to introduce when I'm done with this bit, Karen Tyrell, lovely and talented Karen Tyrell, to speak about her program. So in addition to our base credentials, we do expect that all successful applicants will have completed the Cracking the Dementia Code course. Okay, we're specifically asking this because it's important to us to align with our vision and then our accountability within the community that we serve, to make sure that all of us are operating with a common understanding and knowledge about dementia as a syndrome, and the various types of dementia and how they present, how each will present very differently for every person and depending on the day, and also so that we have a common foundation for best practice in support and enriched living for persons with dementia. Okay, so that's why we're asking for this. It's a great course. It's very quick. Karen will talk about it. It's a really interesting course. I've taken it myself. I really enjoyed it. Okay, and then to answer your question, so yes, all of our roles will be posted publicly. So currently, as I mentioned, we have 2 positions posted, Health and Wellness Manager and our Community Center Manager. The next position that's going to be posted is our Transition Coordinator. This is somebody who I expect that position will be posted by the end of February, and that's the person who's going to need to reach out to our pre-registered families to start collecting personal and life history information, as well as some medical and diagnostics, so that we can start planning for move-in for people into the community, make sure that we can support people in the best way for them. All of our positions will be posted on Verve Senior Living's careers page, very easily Googled, and also on Indeed.ca. I think most people know of Indeed or know how to use it. Guy with Canbrit has fabulous marketing skills and has great connections within the community, and so a lot of our positions will also be posted in other formats, all linking back to the Verve Senior Living and Indeed, but through like the BC Care Providers Association is one example where you may also see that. Also appear in our monthly newsletter, Facebook, LinkedIn. So if you're looking, it would be very hard to miss when these positions are. If you've missed it, I'm not quite sure how that happens. Okay. One thing that I do ask you to do is please be sure to craft your application to the specific role or roles which interest you. So I am hoping that everybody will provide a cover letter specifically stating, why are you interested in this role? I tend to do staffing a little bit differently. I personally believe in competency-based staffing models, and it's more than likely that I will ask questions during the application process that are above and beyond a typical cover letter and resume. I do that for a few things. I like to gauge applicant true interest in the role and then your rationale and reason behind why you're interested in the role. It also gives me a good indication of who you are, you know, as sort of as a person, how you communicate, that type of a thing. So I do ask that you craft your application to the specific role which interests you, and just be careful to pay attention to the application instructions. And I think that's all I've got. So I'll pass it over to Karen. Oh, sorry, you've got a question. Yes.
If you're interested in more than one position, would you submit two separate?
You can, yeah. So the question was, if you are interested in more than one position, would you apply? My preference would be yes. And the reason why I say that is from a volume perspective. At the beginning, I said I probably get about 10 resumes a day. I need to keep these resumes straight. So when you apply for a particular position through that link, your application is going to come in and it's going to be associated with that grouping of positions. I do have a few resumes that, you know, I've kept and I've sort of arranged it and I know to apply them to different roles, but I'm expecting hundreds and hundreds of applications, and I want to make sure that nobody's application gets missed. So it's in your best interest if there are one or two positions that you do apply for the one or two positions, and you will see when they're posted that there are elements of those roles that are very specific to that role that you're probably going to want to build on in terms of explanation. Yeah. Okay. All right, Karen. Careful with the button.
Do you need to stand or something? Do you need to stretch those legs for a few moments? You know, kick around, move a little bit. Take a deep breath in the nose. Good, good. Lots of information, huh? I don't know about you, but I feel it's an exciting time to be in the world of dementia care here in BC. It really is exciting. And knowing that this type of model is being constructed and will be open this year is just so heartwarming for me, because back in 1996, I had a vision to see dementia care improve, to have more household models and less long corridors. And it's finally coming to work. And actually, I had a business plan. I had it all ready to go, but I didn't have a team that had the same vision and philosophy at that time. I wasn't connected to the right people, the right companies, the resources. I couldn't make it happen. So you can imagine my dream coming true when I was invited to support this exciting project and to be working with an incredible team. So, as you're aware, my program, Cracking the Dementia Code, is a training program that is something that's being expected for those who want to be able to work in the village. And this program, Cracking the Dementia Code, is basically a way to put everybody on the same page, same team. And it's around teaching a philosophy on how to best support somebody exhibiting dementia-related behaviors, which is very common. And we do that using creative, non-drug, person-centered approaches. Okay? And so just out of curiosity, how many of you here have already taken Cracking the Dementia Code? Ooh, yeah, I recognize some people. This is great. Okay, good. So those of you who have not yet taken this course and is interested and keen to work in the village, there are some options for you. So first off, it can be done self-paced, on your own, online. You can start it, stop it whenever you need to. It's an hour and a half approximately. It does have a small quiz at the end, but don't worry, we're not tricking you to try to make it very difficult. As long as you go through the program, you'll be able to pass that and receive your certificate electronically. That's one option. The other option is a live workshop. So you can come and learn with a group. It's interactive, it's fun, it's 3 hours. We have 3 sessions coming up here in Langley, the end of March. If you're interested in signing up for that, there is one web page I want to direct everyone to. You'll have the 2 options there available, which ones the online or the live. For those of you who are planners and want to write this down right now, because I see pens are ready, because you're busy people in your lives and you want to know what's coming up. The first session being offered for the live workshop, we're only accepting 30 people per session, and it's going to be held at the Langley Adult Day Program on 56th Avenue. And it's a first come, first serve through Eventbrite. Okay, so the first session is on Thursday evening on March 28th. Starts at 6, ends at 9. The next session is on Saturday, March 30th, in the morning for different shifts. From 9:30 a.m. until 12:30. And then the final session is April 2nd. It's a Tuesday evening. So hopefully, if you're interested, the live version also includes a copy of my book, Cracking the Dementia Code. Prices are on the website, just so you are aware that there is a discount of 20% for the online version and the live session for those who want to apply for the village. So that special link you want to go to is my website, www.dementiasolutions, with an S, dementiasolutions.ca/village -training. Okay, it's a special link just for you folks to sign up, and the courses that I'm offering, live or online, are both with taxes under $90. Okay, so that, if you don't remember that link, I have a sheet I'm going to put out on the table. You can take a picture of the link written down, okay, before you go. So I'm happy to answer any of your questions around cracking the dementia code. On the table when you leave, there'll be a little rat card if you want to learn more about the online. Again, the live training is an opportunity to come and learn and meet some other people that you can sign up through Eventbrite as you had done here. So that's it for me. I just want to say though that I am really looking forward to seeing dementia care improve here in Canada. And I am certain the Village Langley is going to be a leader. It's going to be something that other people in Canada will be wanting to model. And I'm looking forward to working with a great team. So thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, Karen. Lots to learn on cracking the dementia code, and we look forward to seeing everybody taking that training. So what I'd like to do now is allow some time for questions. And I'm not sure, they look pretty comfy, but I might ask these three good folks and Guy just to come down to the front here. And if we have any questions, what I can do is just kind of direct it to the right person, or hopefully they'll speak up. So is there any questions at all that we can answer about the Village Langley? Hi.
Hi. Do you have a pamphlet for people wanting to go into the village, like for somebody?
So do you mean
Like my
a
grandma,
prospective
per se.
Yeah, so at the moment, what we have is, of course, our website. And what we will be preparing as we move closer to opening date is we will have sort of, what would you call them, marketing packages that we would give out to people. And we also, there's going to be, if you've been to our website, there's lots of videos on there. I think there's 3 videos currently. Guy, yeah. There's 3 videos currently, and so people can go there for information, and we've got a couple more coming and that sort of thing. Does that answer your question okay? Kinda? Yeah? Okay.
Most of the time now, like when we get questions from families, and get many a day, I actually tend to reply to them like on a one-on-one basis.
Okay.
Because I find everybody's situation's a little bit different, and sort of when you get down to it, the questions that they have, the question is not the question, right? So they'll ask, how do I get in? How do I get on the wait list? But once you start the conversation, I'm finding that that's actually not what their question is.
The financials
Yeah, they might be asked a question, yeah, how much does it cost? And that's a fair question. Of course it's a fair question. But they want to know more about, well, you know, what am I supposed to do with my mom? Or I don't know how to respond to this. Or are there some supports available for me? Like that question kind of grows. So we don't have a standard thing that we're giving out right now because I think that there's not a standard answer because they're not standard situations.
True enough, true,
Right?
yes.
Great. Good. Thank you for that question.
Thank
Hi.
you.
Will part of the community within the village also encompass palliative or hospice type care?
So the question was, would there be any part of the village that would have palliative or hospice type care? Adrian, would you like to answer that one?
For sure. So we don't have dedicated hospice and palliative care by label. But again, the intention is that, you know, this is somebody's home, and if people are in their final time and that they choose to pass away at the village, then we would absolutely support them to do that. Again, if you look at sort of, you know, traditional language and traditional settings, you know, the concept of acute hospital transfer for purposes of death and dying from a quality of life perspective is limited. So our preference would be that we would be able to educate our residents and our families on quality of life and dignity in dying. So that support certainly would be available, but we don't have a palliative label, for lack of a better description. Good question.
Great question. Any other questions out there? Hi.
Hi, what operating systems are you going to use for documentation for both recreation and nursing?
Sure. So the question was, what sort of technology will be available to the team at the village to document the daily lives of residents and that sort of thing? Adrian, that's a good one for you as well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great question. A work in progress. Actually, this is something that I'm really hopeful that our health and wellness leader will be able to direct me on in terms of what is the best current system that we can use from productivity and value added system. There's lots of options out there. Staff will be enabled for documentation with devices, with modern devices, I can tell you that. But in terms of that particular operating system related to resident care, Verve Senior Living has a really good website for internal, things for access to things like, policy procedures, that type of a thing. We have village-specific policy procedures, which will be available. Yeah.
That's a great question. Yeah, basically what it's coming down to is we're deciding, I'm sure lots of you worked with PCC or Gold Care, things like that. So we're just at that part where we're deciding what's going to work best for the village. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Elroy, yeah.
One thing we didn't mention that I think is kind of cool and you'd be interested in is how are we going to make sure that people are secure when they go outside and decide to go to the barn at 7 o'clock at night to check on the animals. We have a system that's called the Blue Willow system that really works very much like my Fitbit would work, in that everybody gets a wellness band, and that allows us to, first of all, it allows us to monitor their steps. If they fall, that alerts us on a fall. If they need help, they push a button on their wrist and we get an alert. But it also allows us, if necessary, to see where everybody is at any time within the village. So if somebody goes, I mean, one of the whole purposes of the village is to minimize obstacles in front of people to live their life. So if somebody likes to get up at 6 in the morning and go out for a walk, they need to do that, and we need to support that. But we also know that where they're headed, which direction they're headed. If they aren't coming back, we know where we should probably go to start looking. So throughout the village and around the perimeter, and we have an 8-foot high fence all the way around the 7 acres that sort of is our internal community. And the community center has one point of entry. Everybody coming in and out of that community center has to come through that door, so we know who's coming in, we know who's leaving. Once you're in the community, you can move about and feel safe because we kind of keep our eye out and know where you are. So hopefully people working will have phones or tablets that they can get alerts on, they can call up a map and they can see where people are in the house, outside the house. So we have a whole whack of sensors all throughout the grounds, around in the house to monitor and support people as they move about through their day. So that's, we're the first in Canada. So hopefully it works.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Elroy. Yeah, it's an important piece of technology at the village. Thank you. Another question.
Yes, so with this model, which I'm thoroughly excited about, will the menus be driven by a corporate menu or by the villagers themselves?
Sure. So the question was, just so everybody could hear, will the village menu be corporately driven or by the villagers themselves?
We will have the corporate 4-week cycle menu that will be approved and through the consultant dietitian, but it is also resident focused. We will be sure to listen to the resident about what they would like to eat, what they want and need, and make sure it comes and gets put back into that menu, but still meeting the Canada's Food Guide for Seniors and the dietitian's approval. So really resident focused, listening every day. We talked about it a little bit with that grocery store.
Yeah.
The ability to come and say, today we want to have broccoli because cauliflower is not interesting for us. Go ahead, right? We really want to focus in on that when we do the menu.
And as Adrian had mentioned earlier too, with our enriched living facilitators or ELFs, And our household leaders, they're going to have a big role to play with our residents in finishing that salad, putting the sauce and baking the cheese on that pasta and that sort of thing. So if there is certain items that residents want or really have a hankering for that day, then certainly it could be provided.
I got another cool piece of equipment to tell you about. One of our visions were to make each of these houses home. And so my preference would have ultimately been to cook everything in every house with the people who live there, the way they wanted, what they wanted. But we ran into the fire department who thought, if you're going to be cooking in the houses, you have to put commercial fans and hoods in each of the houses. And I don't have that in my house, and I'm sure you don't have that in your house. So we said, is there an option? And they said, well, you can still cook in the house, but you can't have airborne fat or whatever. So that's why we're cooking those things that sizzle and fry over in the community center, bringing it over. But we have in each house something called a rationale oven. And do you know what a rationale oven is? It's a super techie little thing that they say can bake muffins, cook eggs, and roast all at the same time. And you can do a roast from medium rare from one end to the other, and it'll be exactly the same. So it's this computerized $14,000 piece of equipment in each house that the people who work in the house have to learn how to operate, so you can then put stuff in there and make muffins in the morning. And you know, Bruce is more of an expert and knows the experts who can really teach that. But even though we aren't going to do sort of the traditional cooking, there is a whole lot of stuff you can do really quickly and easily on demand. And that's what most of the restaurants do when you go in and order a meal. It's done in a rationale oven. So that's kind of cool in terms of how we can cater to each of the individuals' preferences. You know, if they want to have breakfast at 6:30 in the morning, they can do that, or at 10:30 in the morning and still have breakfast.
That's cool.
Great. Thanks, Elroy. Hi.
Hi. So, being a Care Aide, like, do you have the same person every day, or do you have different people?
I just want to first of all say we aren't hiring any Care Aides.
Well,
We have elves.
We have that.
you're elf.
Who probably have worked as a Care Aide for a number of years and have training. But remember, it's more about the enriched living than it is about
Yes.
the care. So that's why purposely, and that was my kind of little name I came up with, because I want everybody to focus on the living part of it, much, much more than the care part.
Yeah, I love that.
So I have a little, later I'll talk to you about my little thing. I said we need elves who are angels, and you know, I'll talk to you what that means, but that's what we need, elves. So do they have the same elf?
Yes, do they have the same elf every day?
Elf on a shelf.
Yes.
All year round. Yeah, so dedicated staffing in each household.
And so, yeah, so as Adrian points out, what we're really trying to focus on is that the household would have primarily the same team. And so Hawthorne House will have Hawthorne House's team. Arbutus House will have Arbutus House.
That's cool.
There's probably about, and with a conscious decision to try to minimize the number of strangers who would show up in
which
the
is
house.
good.
So we're building a team where that's why they're permanent. A lot of the positions are full-time.
Yeah.
When you're off, the same person replaces you.
That's
so
good.
that I think there's about 10 bodies that would be in a house 24/7,
That's good.
week in, month out. So it's only 10 people in each house.
That's good.
Great question, thank you.
This lady's had a question for the last 5 or 10
Hi,
years.
yeah.
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Keep it short.
Okay.
When is the opening date?
So everybody could hear, when is the opening date of the village, which is a great question. Adrian, you okay if I take that one? Yeah, so we are summer of 2019. And so we're saying summer because, of course, you know, when you're developing and building, you know, things come up and things change. We're hoping for a target date around August 1st. But right now it's summer of 2019. Great question. What was number 2 question there?
So the residents, the community, people that live in the community.
Villagers.
The villagers?
Villagers.
Yeah.
How will the elves dress?
How? Oh, okay. So the.
Like you do at home.
So the question was, how will the elves dress? And the answer is the elves will dress how they would dress in their own home. Well, maybe a little bit better than that, but yeah. But if the question is, will the elves be wearing scrubs? I think the answer is, we hope not.
What I envision is probably coming up with a village golf shirt or some kind of a shirt that people can have, a couple of them, and if you feel you need to wear something else, you can put that on. But the whole intent is to be home and to be a community. And, you know, we generally don't have a lot of nursey people walking around our community. If they are, they're dressed in their normal clothes. So that's the whole idea, is to normalize day in and day out as much as we can without calling it a care facility, or it's just a community, it's a village.
Great, thank you for that question. You had your hand up quite a few times. Yes.
Would the village consider volunteers and adult day programs?
So absolutely, and I think Elroy is probably the best person to chat about that.
I always talk about getting people, volunteers, is sort of the cherry on top. The people we hire are going to do the day-to-day stuff that absolutely needs to be done, and if we didn't have any volunteers, we could still do it, and we could still create a relatively good life for the people who live there. But to create an extraordinary experience, we need those extra pairs of hands and people. So we've created this organization called Friends of the Village. And that's a not-for-profit society where anybody who is not living there or well, even a family member could be a friend, or working there could become a friend of the village, and they could be involved in the village in any number of ways that they feel they could contribute, whether that be as a business who can provide us with some services, whether that be a church group who could come in and put on some activities, or whether it be an individual who could just come in and say, hey, I can volunteer for 3 hours on Tuesday. Tell me which house I should hang out in. And then the house would know that this volunteer is coming, and they could use that to enhance, enrich the living today. So volunteers are a key part, and as we get rolling, there'll be a whole lot of people, or a number of people out there talking about how others can get involved if they're not working there. So that's a very key part of what will make the village a success.
And as both Adrian and I mentioned, we do have a barn. So if anybody knows of a good volunteer who is a veterinarian or likes to take care of animals, there we go. Yeah, that's right. I did see a question just way in the back. Yes.
Hi. Yeah, I'm just interested to know if you'll be hiring a music therapist. Not as a member of our dedicated staff team, but music is something that we will certainly incorporate within the community in terms of an enrichment event and activity, for sure. So that would be something that we would include, but not as a dedicated position at this time.
Let me put it this way. If you were a household leader and also a music therapist, that would be absolutely amazing.
Therapies, right? And that's purposely why we left that role description open, because that's the role where we have a lot of flexibility, and that's a great way to do that.
Great question. And I saw one more over here. No? Okay. Hi, way over there.
I work right now at the Shorty Alzheimer's Center, which is a very similar structure to this. And what we're seeing as a bit of a problem in our cottages, as villagers' needs change, would they move from the house that they first moved into the assisted living, or from the assisted living into the more complex care?
Under the current legislation, they would be required to. Yeah, under the existing conditions of the Community Care and Assisted Living Act, and the register of obligations of the BC Assisted Living Registrar, yes, they would need to move households. And we can put temporary supports in place as part of what is legally referred to as an exit plan, horrible language. But when somebody's needs exceed those which can legally be provided in assisted living, we can put those temp supports in place and continue to include them in that household. But once there is an opening in the complex care level households, they would need to, unless we see some changes legislatively.
Yeah, Adrian says that's the rules now, but there is Bill 16 before the government that will hopefully allow people to stay in assisted living legally for much longer. And I think that will happen at some point, which will minimize the people having to move, because ideally, if we didn't have to worry about all this stuff, people would move in a house, stay there for the rest of their life.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But because we have to operate in an environment where there's regulations and rules and licensing and that sort of thing, we have to try to manage that as best we can.
Sure. I feel like I've been neglecting this side of the room. Is there any questions over here? Hi, yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to know, has there been any projected hours for staffing, like 12-hour shifts, 8-hour shifts?
Sure. So the question, so everybody can hear, is has there been sort of a staffing plan created or projected hours or shifts that the teams will be working? Adrian, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so in a high level, yes, I don't have a down to the minute staff schedule right now, but our vision in the households is that these would typically be 3 on, 2 off.
4 on, 2 off.
Excuse me, 4 on, 2 off. Thank you. 4 on, 2 off. The expected shifts, again, in terms of timing, are somewhat fluid at this point. We're thinking they would be 10-hour shifts for consistency.
Nice.
But again, it's a work in progress, so I don't really want to get into too much detail there now because I can't commit to what it's going to look like. But it would be rotational.
I'll add it. In a house, the thought would be that there'll be a full-time elf on days and a full-time elf on evenings, and they're working 4 days on, 2 days off, and those 2 days off would be a third elf replacing it. So basically, you would have 3 people, morning to night, ongoing. So there wouldn't be just somebody coming in and working for a day or 2. The idea would be to have the household leaders cover 7 days by having probably working on a 4-day, 3 off, 3 on, 4 off shift, and work a 10-hour shift where they maybe came in at 9 in the morning and left at 7 and covered that whole daytime. And again, the whole idea is to minimize people who are just coming in for 1 shift or part-time. There would also then be permanent part-time who could come in as well for less than full-time, would again probably work 4 on and 2 off, but that would be a bit more flexible. So we may say your basic shift is 4 hours or 5 hours, but you have to be able to flex that and add an hour or 2 depending on the needs that are happening. Stop and start times need to be flexible because we don't know who's going to live there yet, so it's hard for us to say you start at 7 and go home at 3. So that's where I talked about flexibility. I know a lot of you can't be that flexible because of other commitments and obligations, and that's okay, but you need to know that if you're hired, we need you to be flexible. And so, but we want to get routine and consistency so that you can plan the rest of your life around when you're not working, as well as we can minimize the number of strangers.
Great, good question. Hi.
Hi.
I was just wondering, having worked for Verve before, are we gonna have the same sort of base programs that you have in other Verve communities, like the Meet Me at the MoMA and everything as well?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Like the same.
Yeah, there's certainly an opportunity to have all those programs, and if it works for the village, then we'll bring it in. If it's something that is not kind of gonna really work with the village, then no, it's not, there's not specific brand programs that must go. Yeah, good question. Hi. Yes, yeah.
My question is, so there's about 78 villagers in the community, about 5 households. And in that, how many would be the complex?
About 25.
That's right, about, yeah. So the question was, the difference between AL and complex care would be about 26.
Yeah, so each household is designed to house 12 to 13 residents. In one of the households, we have a shared room intended to accommodate couples if they choose to share a room. And then in the other household, we have an additional room that over time we'd like to be able to use to provide respite care. My preference around the provision of respite care is that we would be a well-oiled machine and we'd be really confident and competent as a team when we enter into respite care, because respite care on a given day is very difficult. It's a tricky thing to provide, and then providing respite care for a person with dementia, we add another layer of complexity in there. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
From a household operation, staffing-wise, there'll be maybe a few more ELF hours in a complex care than assisted living, but otherwise, day-to-day, they're going to be very similar. Probably the main difference is in the health and wellness piece, where in the licensed complex care, we'll have a nurse in those 2 houses 24/7, whereas in the assisted living, we'll have nurses who, what I use is the home care model, where they'll go to somebody's home and do what they need to do and then go to somebody else's home. So they won't be based in a house, whereas the complex care will have a nurse based there, but we don't have a nurse's station and we don't have an office. They have to kind of find a place to be out of sight.
Good. So we have time for a couple more questions. I saw over here somewhere. Yes.
Is there a physician on site, or will the residents go off site for their regular appointments, and is that supervised? How does that work?
Question, did you want to repeat the question? Did everybody hear the question?
Yeah, so the question was, will there be an on-site physician? And if residents need to leave, will they be supervised by a staff member?
So, excellent question. So, I've had a very productive conversation with the Langley Division of Family Practice. So, the Division of Family, is everyone familiar with the Residential Care Initiative through the Ministry of Health? Okay, so through the Ministry of Health, there's a pocket of doctors, a committee of physicians that oversees something called the Residential Care Initiative. And what that is, it's an organization that provides dedicated funding. They use the term bed for complex care beds in communities that affords people a dedicated physician, and then also support for the community for things like professional development and quality assurance and quality initiatives. So I approached the Langley Division of Family Practice, and they have agreed to integrate our 25 complex care homes into their model, which is fabulous. So for our residents with complex care needs, they will have a dedicated physician through the Langley Division of Family Practice. So, and the Division of Family Practice are the ones that are looking after that administratively. That's their purview to do that. The other thing that they have very kindly offered is that for our residents living in assisted living who do not have a family doctor, or who do but would prefer to have a doctor within their new community or associated with their new community, that they would have physicians available to take those residents on as patients.
The other thing we've done, we had long-term, we planned to put in a community bathing section in the community center, because we think somewhere in the future being able to offer community bathing may be a valued thing for people who are living at home. But in the short term, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that space and turn it into a doctor's clinic office. So our hope is the doctors come to us in the community center, and we then just have to make sure that people get to the community center to see their doctor, as opposed to having to leave and go into Langley somewhere. So we'll give the space to those, group of doctors who want to do that.
And most of our pre-registered residents are not from Langley. So they're coming from other communities where, again, we're not sure if they're doctors, which is against the doctor's choice if you choose to follow your patient, right? So we have a lot of residents pre-registered coming from West Vancouver, North Vancouver, the Island, Salmon Arm, Cranbrook, like Vernon, all over the place. So I would anticipate that a lot of village residents will be in need of a new practitioner.
Great. So one more question, sure.
So once you do have your team assembled, what's your plan for training to bringing your team members together in the village to get acquainted with the village and its surroundings and all its sort of operating systems?
Sure. So as you can imagine, we're still a ways off. But we do have 3 training sessions planned already for our team members. It's just a matter of getting those team members together first. And so that's an ongoing plan that will be developed over time. But we do have a couple of training sessions already ready to go in late June, I believe, something around those lines. But it's very fluid at this point, as you can imagine. Yeah.
The other thing, I think and this is a bit of an ongoing debate about, what is best. We have almost enough people registered who could fill up 4 houses right now when we open, but it wouldn't make a lot of sense to open 4 houses all at once with a whole bunch of new people trying to sort through and figure out how it works. So we have to assemble the teams, bring in household teams, give them a period of time to learn about stuff, and then transition the people into that household on an organized plan basis, and then keep rolling and fill up another house and another team. So it could be that the final group of team members won't be hired or start until well into the fall, getting toward the end of the year by the time we actually get filling up that last house. But at this point, until we actually get more information on the people who are wanting to come and their needs, it's really difficult for us to say, this is where they'll go and this is what they'll need. So over the next 2 or 3 months, that's going to become much more clear. But we want to do it right. We know we only have one opportunity to do this well, and so we don't want to rush and ultimately screw it up. We want to take our time to get it right.
Thank you.
And sort of my view on training is we want to focus on training, but we also want to focus on education and professional development. And those 3 things are very, very different, right? The training is task-based, and then the education, best practice, new ideas, new philosophy, and professional development, and personal development, right? Totally different things. So I think that circle of, support for all of us is going to be an ongoing thing and a major component of my role.
So before we close things up today, I just want to ask, is there anything more from this group? No? Great. So one thing I did want to mention before we break for today is if you had friends, family, acquaintances, and whomever else that weren't able to come today or aren't able to come to our next session, the video of this will be posted on social media sites, Facebook particularly. So you can, I would say in a few weeks, you could find all this video of today's session as well as all of your questions there at some point in the very near future. Okay? I really want to thank everybody for coming. I love seeing all the smiling faces on a Saturday morning. And thank you very much for attending today. Okay? Thanks very much.